This is Tracy Harrell, and I am here interviewing four amazing youth. And I'm going to start to the left with the dude, handsome dude in the red cap. Tell us who you are as loud as you can. What's your age? What school do you go to? And what do you like best about your school experience right now?
My name is Deshmar Moore, 15. What I like best is that out of school year, I'll say it's not really that. It's like the same. It's like a new freshman year. This freshman, I didn't have a freshman year because COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like my freshman year. I'm getting used to the school, getting used to classes. Classes are really easy. Got my credits up, and just it's really going good. Teachers are more leeway because COVID and pandemic, and sometimes people can't just get all the homework done and stuff like that. So that's what I would say I like best about the school year.
So flexibility?
Yeah, flexibility.
Yeah. Back to you guys. Now, I'm part of a group, an organization called the Black Education Strategy Roundtable. And they're really interested in making sure you guys have the opportunities that you need, but they also want to really hear your voices about what's not working. Like if you had to say, what was the worst thing about education and COVID? Flashback. I know most of you guys are adapting now, but if you had to say, what's the worst thing? What would you say, Dejman?
The worst thing probably is like, I wouldn't say it was about us. So I feel bad for the teachers because when the Zoom, and they were going on the Zoom, and they would like tell kids to turn on their camera, they didn't, and stuff like that, and most kids would just join the Zoom and go back to sleep. So now the teacher just talking to nobody, and that's what I feel like it was bad about in COVID. And COVID for students, it was probably like the easiest school year for them. For the teachers, it was probably the worst, I would say.
Like that was a big piece that we really needed.
It was missing. You said, now repeat what you said. You said they were taking it too easy on you?
Yeah, it was too easy. Like he said, you can go to sleep if you wanted to.
And so how did that make you feel? Get over here, Deshman. Get over here with him real quick. How did that make you feel? I mean, how did it make you feel like I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but I know your mama, so I know she had some high expectations for you. So they had lower expectations. How did that make you feel?
I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it's just like how the kids. It was. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, basically, it wasn't like what the kids were given. Like, the school wasn't I would say helping the kids. They weren't the kids were just doing whatever they want to do, and the school couldn't do anything about it because they're not at school. They're at home, and so you can't tell them to turn on their cameras or tell them to not go to sleep, because how do you know? You can't. You just can't know, and that's why I just said it was probably the worst year for the teachers because they just couldn't get anything done. And one of my teachers, all she would do is do one Zoom a week. So, because she didn't want to do Zoom and knew all the kids were just sleeping and stuff like that, so she did one Zoom middle of the week, because that's when kids are most energized. Monday is a kid's worst day. Go to sleep. Fridays is the best day for them, so they'll probably be energized, and it's a late start. And that's my opinion. Is what I would say. That's the lower expectations. I don't even know how to It was just because my mom, she'll have high expectations. She'll come in the morning and be like, you better be on the Zoom and stuff like that. You better wake up. And then she'll close the door and I'll go right back to sleep. And then the teachers want to know because they're like, oh, they didn't tell us to turn on the camera. So I don't even know. That's just my take on it.
And like I said, I know your family. So expectations are high. Guys, what do you two have to say about this concept of the worst part of COVID for you? What was the worst?
We weren't really learning nothing. It was just they were speaking it and that's it. They're just teaching their lesson, but nobody was learning the lesson. So I think
he's nodding his head over there.
It was just more of just we're there just to be there because it's school and we have to be there. But in reality, we weren't really even there.
What you got to say? Why you say So it was.
I agree with what he was saying. It's when he said school be there. What was he saying again?
That we're there, but in reality, we're not doing that.
That's what I wanted to say. That's the key sentence right there.
Say it louder. What's your take on that?
Is what? Say it again one more time.
We're there, but in reality,
we're not
doing
there.
Nothing.
Exactly. There we go.
There but not there.
We're there, but in reality, we're not there.
I'm laughing only because you guys are so adorable. But clearly, this is serious business, right? So, I mean, what would you guys say if you had to look at the educational system and say, do better? What can we do better? How can we do better?
Like, basically, because all this COVID going around, at this point, Zoom is like, there's no need unless like, a kid wants to have a one-on-one, and that's where the emailing comes in. And that's where you're like, hey teacher, I want to have a one-on-one. Then that's where like you have a way better, like you can see them not face to face, but now you have a one-on-one. You can actually teach the kid the lesson and stuff like that. And if the kids like what I'm trying to say is that's what comes out where in high school, that's where the maturity comes out. So like if you need help, you have to go ask for help. So if you want to have a one-on-one with the teacher, you email her, and then there you go. That's your one-on-one with the teacher. Instead of the teacher wasting her time teaching a class that the class is not even listening. That's something that the teacher could do better. Instead of having Zoom, have one-on-ones.
I also think something else that has to do with it is when one person is doing the work, that person, for everyone else around them. For example, say I'm the only one with my camera on, I'm the only one taking notes, doing the work, but everyone's, sleeping, just there. But I'm doing the work, right? I'm learning, but the entire environment that I'm surrounded with, it's not comfortable because it feels that you're singled out. That's why most of the time classes, all cameras are off, everybody's out doing their own stuff instead of learning because they feel pressured that they're the only one there, they're being singled out. But so it makes sense that what Desmond said was like one-on-one, because for me, when I ask my teacher, I don't get this, I don't understand this, and they come and help me, that's when I'll really get it, because then they're not trying to teach everybody the same thing with like having to like dumb it down, make it so that everybody can understand. It's so that they're simply just teaching me.
Nice.
I can understand.
I love it. Now let me ask you guys. Were you going to say something else, Desmond?
No.
Take that lollipop out your mouth, little cutie. Thank you very much. So, someone mentioned this concept of testing. Like these tests that you have to take to get to the next grade or whatever. What's the deal with the testing?
Testing can stay the same. I would say testing can stay the same.
It's pretty much the same. It's still pressure. You still have to study. If you don't, you still mess it up.
There's nothing you can really change about that. Testing is just that's on the kids. That's not on nobody else but the kids. That's for you to do. If you fail it, that's because of you. Because you didn't study it. You didn't do that. And if you pass it, then you pass it. You did what you had to do. You did what you were expected to do.
So, do you feel like the testing is working? That's something that is working?
He keeps the same.
So testing for regular classes or testing for like those grade level moves?
Anything. Any testing, they can stay the same.
If they have to go back to remote, they can sort of have a better expectation that folks will be engaged and be on camera.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's hard to keep them engaged, if they are on camera, but it's really hard to keep them engaged if they ain't on camera.
Impossible. It's hard to keep me engaged when I'm on. I'm all about being in. 100% agree. 100% agree. That's great. So is that the kind of stuff that you would think from a BESR perspective? It's really more about we're hearing the voices, you're bringing practical solutions into this space?
Yes, that is. So it is taking some time to make sure that we have looked at what are the questions that we're asking, so that we're making sure that generates into the process. But those are the kind of, I love what did you say? The back and forth between the students. Let me hear that again. Let me hear that was, I like that interaction.
Like, what is your expectation for this Black student report card?
It's not about an immediate point in time. It's about an assessment over time of here's what our system is like. And it gives us a direction of what we can do going forward, which is timely, that we can do things differently. So anyway, that's the one piece that's floating around in my mind right now is about the lack of instruction that is happening way too often at schools, and that there's no planning for how to catch people up who are behind. No
Okay.
plan.
Love it. I'm going back. When you saw the video.
I had to laugh a little bit about some of the comments about going back to sleep and
Right.
you know,
I like the honesty.
yeah, but the thing about it is that's one of the challenges, quite frankly, of the remote learning process. And one of the things that BESR talked about recently in our board meeting was the fact that will we ever get to the point where we'll be able to learn the learning loss that took place during the pandemic in the remote learning. And when you think about some of the things that occurred during that period of time from an accessibility standpoint, as well as from a standpoint of students going back to sleep, there were real challenges to the learning process. And will we ever be able to catch up with that? And when you think about how the schools then had to do the grading on it, then does that send a proper message with regards to the GPAs and everything else when you put a pass fail, when in fact there are some questions whether or not you can validate whether or not that student truly, earned that credit or went through that lesson or mastered that content or whatever the case may be. So those are just some of the highlight things.
Yeah.
And I like the comments. So one of them said about being there but not really being there.
Right.
I thought that was very astute on their part to come up with that thought, and that yeah, they were there, but were they really there from a standpoint of really paying attention to it, or really participating in it, really learning from it, being able to really test out on it, or what's the case may be? Physically, when they were there, yeah, but were they really there? And I thought that was a very astute observation on their part.
Right. Exactly. And this was just an impromptu conversation. So for them all to land on it, if you had, right, I wanted to learn a little bit more about your vision for the organization, right? Your vision for being part of that network in the community where they want their voices to be heard by you because they know you're working for them. That's my goal. That's what's going to happen over the next 6 months. So I want to get your thoughts about that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on that. If you recall from that interview that I shared with you, that I was interviewed, when I ended that up, one of the things that I talked about was the dream. And one of the things we have to communicate to all of these young folks, as well as the folks that are members of the Black MBA Association, is that never give up on your dream, and always understand the value of being a lifelong learner to help facilitate you being able to achieve your dream. And that's, things might look dire at a point in time, and there might be barriers at a point in time, but always continue to look ways to move forward and eliminate those barriers or overcome those barriers so that you continue to move forward on achieving your dream. So that would be the key thing for both the organization as well as for these young folks that we're trying to mentor and everything else is recognize what your dream is. And even in the situation, Tracy, where you have members of the organization that have their MBAs and everything else, understand, it's just like myself. Even though I had my MBA, I continue to move forward and get a PhD. And after PhD and after retiring, I moved forward and got a teaching credentials, in graduate school. Because I always looked at that as a stepping stone to achieve my personal dreams and everything else. And everybody has to understand that.
When you founded this organization, at what point were you convinced that you could make a difference? Like, did you just start out knowing that the integration of voice data, and that was the kind of the recipe for success, and community, that was the recipe for success?
Well, what started off with, it started off as a volunteer organization. And in the volunteer organization, it was an effort by a bunch of us that were concerned about the fact that so many of our kids were being marginalized, underserved, and not appreciated. That's how it started off, basically. And then we tried to look for ways that we could impact the educational system to make it more supportive of our kids and our community and everything else. So the first thing was to come up with the idea and understanding that everything we did was intentional. We were not going to be apologetic for looking out for our kids. We were not going to be apologetic for looking out for our community and everything else. And all those steps that were necessary in order for us to fulfill that obligation and that desire, we decided that we would look forward on moving forward and coming up with strategies and everything to accomplish that. So that was the first thought process that we went through. The second thing was that there was a achievement gap study that was put together. And there was a group of us that became part of the achievement gap that came up with the strategies to narrow the achievement gap for African American students and to improve their opportunities from a standpoint of educational achievement. That was a foundation for it. And our group, the African American Commission, put that together, and we went through and we worked on that. And we came up with the strategy, and we presented it to the legislature, and it was passed 100% by both the Senate and the House, Senate Bill 2722. And as a result of the work that we did, they also gave the same kind of money for future work to the other ethnic commissions, the Hispanic, the Latino, and the South and the AP group. So we were kind of we like to say that we're the ones that achieved the financial support that was necessary in order to continue forward. So that was the first.
That's huge.
Yeah, that was the first step in coming up with that strategy and everything else. And surprisingly enough, the strategy or the achievement gap studies that each one of the groups did were remarkably similar in a lot of cases. While there was some uniqueness to each community, for the most part, there's some of the same concerns and everything existed in all the communities with regards to what the educational system was doing or not doing with regards to supporting and helping and students of color get through the educational system. So that was the foundation for it. And again, the foundation for the whole thing was the fact that we would never, ever be apologetic for focusing in on helping our kids in our community. So that kind of gives you a background, a little bit of background on how BESR got started and how we have focused in on being, quite frankly, the kind of like the bearers and the forefronters trying to accomplish those things that will improve opportunities for our kids.
I love it. I love it. Now, this, first of all, I love the strategic focus of the organization and this Black student report card. If you had to identify your definition of success, what would you identify? What are you trying to accomplish with that? And what would you see as the ideal end game, starting with the end in mind?
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of data out there. And unfortunately, a lot of the data out there there's a challenge with regards to disaggregation of that data so it can get down to the front line so we can really focus in on individual student needs and everything else. A lot of times you get data and it looks from a total group standpoint as opposed to the individual standpoint. And the other part of it is that there is always a challenge about the transparency of that data and whether or not it's understandable, not just from the teachers and the principals and the superintendents and everything else, but also the community themselves. They want to know how their kids are doing, what are they achieving, where do they need additional support. And there's been a real challenge in finding the vehicles to accomplish that and to share that with them. So I think the Black Student Report Card is a vehicle that will enable us to narrow down statistics and data and everything else on an individual student basis and to help the parents become advocates and supporters of their students.
I am so excited. And what's really exciting is I know with COVID, there was some delay in this project. And now we're ready to basically do what we thought we were going to do over 2 years. I'm going to actually have it done in the next 6 months. That's what I was telling Steve. And we're going to do it through this idea of partnership, amplification of those voices integration of work that's already happening, programs, and when we have groups of students that are being nurtured and connected, but there's also a community of students that are not. So we're going to do a combination of using the groups that already exist, but also pulling in those voices of students who aren't part of those perhaps existing programs. And there's lots of great things that are happening. So I think being able to elevate the voices of both individual students, parents, mentors that are already doing the work, but connecting that in an online space and allowing BESR to be kind of in the center of that. So just being able to elevate the voices is going to be absolutely amazing. So I'm excited, super delighted that the strategically timing is just so perfect. And this is the work I love to do. So I'm again delighted to have you with such a clear vision, clear purpose, and also to be in a position for us to truly deliver something that you don't have to continue to feed per se, because basically creating this online ecosystem, this strategic framework that says BESR is in the center of this work that is happening, students will know what your role is, that you're advocating for them. So as those programs would even may change or whatever's happening, they're still going to see you all as that voice. So when you have a question and you want to ask for insight, we're going to have that ecosystem that already exists. That strategic online framework will be in place, but we're also physically getting out there and being supportive of those other individual programs by bringing them together. So I just wanted you to know that there's a plan in place. It's a very strategic plan, but it's also aligned with the work that I love to do. So just thank you bless you. And thank you for bringing this vision together. And I'm excited to really take it to the next level. Bless you. Bless you. I asked for 5 minutes and we are at the 5-minute mark. I just want to say thank you. Any thoughts about what I just said?
No, I think you're right on. And there's another element of this that I was going to share with you. The fact that
yes,
the other important thing is that this is shared with the partners that we have out in the community that are working on
yes,
similar things for our community and for our students. So that the more of our partners and more individuals in our community who are trying to focus in on and not being apologetic for helping our students in our community, then we have that vehicle that they can fall back on in their conversations that they also have.
absolutely.
And then you have all these different entities having the same conversation, the same commitment, and the same focus on our kids, unapologetically again, to help them out and to help those families out with the help of their kids matriculate to that educational system.
Exactly. It's I think one of the outputs that Steve said he wanted was like a brochure, right? He was like, I want something that's simple that, both parents and educators, legislators, will be able to see, and that tells our story, right, even more effectively. So I'm like, yes, and like that's the low bar for me. So yes, and I expect that there will be an actual workbook as well, because think about the articles and the content and the things that we know, and then they're supplemented with the voices, those video blogs, being able to actually write a message, have actual voices attached to that. So, like it's a beautiful thing. Like now is our time to make sure you guys don't have a YouTube channel yet, but being able to even have a space where these voices are openly sharing information that supports the data. So having the faces and the true voices, both parents and students, it's a beautiful thing. So all that is happening, just so that like my brain doesn't think little. I'm thinking very strategic about how do we just create this ecosystem. So in the future, you guys are sitting with your feet on the desk, because we've now established over this short 6-month period, we've established a space where BESR, like I said, anytime you want to ask a question. And that's the other thing I was going to ask you about, specific questions. If you had 5 students in front of you, what questions would you want to ask them? What are the most strategic questions you would want to ask?
Basically, want to ask them what are their dreams. What are your dreams, and what do you think is necessary in order for you to accomplish your dream? Okay. What do you think of the current educational system and how it's supported you or not supported you? And where do you see there's an opportunity for you as an individual student to get more support that will enable you to be more successful as a student? And then the other one would be, how do you describe your relationship with your teacher, with your principal, and with the school you attend? Do you feel comfortable, safe?
Mm,
Is it a safe environment where you feel that learning is not impaired by fear of what
mm.
other things that could happen to create barriers for your learning? What support do you get from your family? And where do you see there's opportunities for other organizations and everything to help your family be more supportive of your educational effort?
Love it, and love it. We're all over it. I'm so excited.